It can be really tempting that when you turn 60, you want to immediately start collecting your Canada Pension Plan benefits. You've been contributing for a long, long time, and now you're eligible to take some of that money out. I can see the appeal. Generally speaking, though, it is advantageous in many cases to delay the take-up of that Canada Pension Plan. And especially in the environment we're in today, with inflation running as hot as it is, the benefit of deferring that benefit really compounds here. Inflation always has and always will have an effect on the CPP benefit system. With current numbers running inflation year over year at 7.7%, it is time to revisit this issue. CPP amounts are adjusted in January of every year, and those are based on a percentage change from one 12-month period to a previous 12-month period. When we look at 2022 CPP rate increase as an example, we'll see the average CPI from November 20 to October 21 is divided by the average CPI by November 2019 to November 20. That will give us the price increase for the new year. We can see that this past year for 2022, the numbers increased 2.7%. So if you are receiving Canada Pension Plan already, you will receive a 2.7% increase over the amount that you were taking the previous year. If you're starting new collecting CPP this year, that benefit equally will be 2.7% higher than it would have been if inflation had not been in play here. If you'd like a little bit of good news in this whole formula here, in the event that we suffer a deflationary time, so if the cost of living or the consumer price index actually drops, and that does happen from time to time, your benefits will not be decreased. As prescribed under the Canada Pension Plan Act, benefit amounts do not decrease. They stay at the same level they were if there is a decrease in the cost of living. For reference, just looking back over the past few years, in 2020, we saw a 1.9 increase in the benefit, the CPP benefit. In 2021, the benefits went up by only 1%. As I mentioned, in 2022, there was a 2.7% increase. Now, in 2023, so we're in the middle of those calculation months right now, with inflation running as high as it is, the jury is still out on what that will be. But certainly it will be a higher number. With the inflation that we've seen, with the wage inflation we've seen, definitely that's going to come in at a higher number that will impact you. Now, the second way that inflation also affects your Canada Pension Plan benefits is related to what's called the YMPE, or the year's maximum pensionable earnings number. And this number is now increasing at the fastest rate in about 30 years. When this number increases, there's a couple things that happen. One is if you're a higher income earner, you have to contribute more. The maximum earnings that you contribute into Canada Pension Plan goes up higher, but also you're going to get more of a benefit at the other end. When we look back at 2020, for example, the YMPE was $58,700. Now, when we look at 2021, that number went up 4.94%, almost 5%, to $61,600. And last year, it was the largest increase we've seen since 1992. The number went up 5.36% to $64,900. This means that if you're in a fortunate situation where you're earning sufficient income, if you're earning that much income or more, you can contribute more. Again, that's going to give you a higher benefit when you start collecting. So when you factor in inflation and the consumer price index as it rises, it affects both the benefit amount that you're going to receive. It also affects how much money you can contribute to the plan, ultimately deciding on what your benefit's going to be. So how does this play in to when you decide to start actually taking your benefits? You probably already know that the default age for taking Canada Pension Plan is age 65. You can start taking it as early as 60 or as late as 70. And the date that you take this up does have a significant and a permanent impact on the amount. Thank you to Advisors Edge. It has this very easy to understand chart here that shows if you take up your CPP at age 65, there's no discount in what you'd normally qualify for. There's also no enhancement. You can take it, as I mentioned, as early as 60. Now, if you do, you can see there's a 36% discount to your normal rate. Or if you defer, it increases at 0.7% per month. You can actually defer to age 70. And at that point, you're going to get a 42% enhancement over what you would take had you started taking it up at age 65. Just as an FYI, the average age that people start is around 62 and a half. If we take all Canadians who are eligible to start collecting, it's around that age. Now, inflation is high now, and this could have a significant impact. The environment that we're going through right now really should, I would suggest, affect your decision if you are eligible to take up your CPP. I'd like to go over a case study that, again, was in this Advisors Edge article, and they looked at a hypothetical person, I'm assuming named Cynthia, And Cynthia, like so many others, was anxious to start taking her Canada pension plan. So as soon as she turned 60, January of 2020, she started taking her Canada pension plan benefits. Now, in her case, she was eligible for the maximum amount, which would be $1,175.83 a month back in January of 2020. Because she's taking it those 60 months earlier or 5 years earlier, her discount from the average amount or from the full amount would be 36%. So she would end up getting a benefit of $752.53. The question is, what happens if she would have waited even 1 year? And this is the critical part. If she had waited until January 2021, her benefit would be $857.07. However, because she locked in that earlier rate starting in 2020, she got a 1% rise, a 1% increase. The benefit in her case would be $760, a 1% increase over the amount that she had previously started taking. Let me take a moment to acknowledge, because I know that minds are worrying right now, the argument has always been, yes, if she delayed, she'd get a higher amount, but she had a year's worth of the payments at the lower amount to either invest, to bank, to spend, etc. No question, when you look at this purely from a mathematical perspective, in the nearer term, yep, you've already got that money you've put away, so it takes a while. There's a sort of, I guess what's referred to as the break-even point where you would eventually catch up. If you are up for a sort of an in-depth actuarial type report onto whether it's better to delay or take up your CPP earlier, generally, like I say, the math works out in your favor to delay, but I will put a link here for a video that I previously did that goes into some degree of depth there, and I would encourage you to check that out after this video is over here. First, though, I'm going to give you one more example. So she started in 20. She could have gone to 2021. Now, what if she would have delayed her take-up until January of 2022? If she did, her benefit would now be $982.81 a month. Again, contrast that to $780 that she would be getting now, having started in 2020. This study itself assumes going forward that the CPI will be 2% per year, and the wage index, or the yearly maximum pensionable earnings, will increase by 3%. Those are good, solid, longer-term numbers, but as we can see at this critical juncture we're going through right now, the numbers are running pretty much higher than that. If we just look at delaying to age 65, we see an 82% larger payment she could be eligible for versus her starting payment. Now, you compare that against 10% if she had taken starting back in 2020. An even starker example is if she did delay up until age 70, she would be eligible for $2,254 a month versus the $914. So an almost tripling of the amount that she started with back at $752.53. A big question here is how many months, how many quarters, or how many years, in fact, will we go through before the Bank of Canada is able to sort of tame this inflationary environment that we're in right now. The higher the inflation rate for now, the bigger impact this has on the money that you could potentially receive, and obviously on your decision as to when to take up that CPP. And there is a hidden bonus, I think, when you stop crunching the numbers themselves. You transfer a couple of risks over to the government. One is you transfer the risk of investing. So if you were taking the money yourself, yes, it's great. You have that money to invest, but you are assuming an element of risk there. Also, you're transferring the risk of the inflationary times, because again, those numbers are going to continue to increase every year as you go by. So if inflation gets high like it is now, you can actually benefit from that, as opposed to someone who's locked in at a lower rate. Inflation doesn't care if you started taking Canada Pension Plan a couple of years ago. It's going to continue to do its thing, and you're going to be losing purchasing power essentially every year that goes by. A couple of key assumptions here. Number one, if you are in poor health, the dynamic shifts quite a bit. And if you have a shortened life expectancy, then absolutely it makes sense to take your Canada Pension Plan earlier rather than deferring it, because you may never get it. Also, if you have no savings, a built-in assumption in a model like this or in a decision like this is that you don't need that benefit on day one. If you are struggling financially and you absolutely need that benefit, well, then that will sway the pendulum over to possibly taking it right away. But if you do have sufficient savings, RRSPs or otherwise, that you can start taking the money out to fill that gap, then it does weigh in favor here. Another scenario is if you are receiving CPP survivors benefits currently, that might affect you as well. And I'm sure there's some other benefits, or there's some other issues that you want to be cognizant of as well. before you ultimately make this decision. The key is this: you want to be strategic. You don't want to just do what the masses do typically and start taking your Canada pension plan as early as possible just because you can. Think it through. If you want to learn more about Canada Pension Plan, about the old age security system, about the guaranteed income supplement that is available to most Canadians, a video I did about a year ago covers that off in detail, everything that you need to know about those government-sponsored pension plans. I would encourage you to check that out. Also, we have our Investing Academy. It is the first link in the description below. I would really invite you to check out how we help other Canadians manage their investments over the course of their lifetime. As always, I would thank you for watching the video, and I do look forward to seeing you in the next video.